Okay, everybody, welcome to yet another Nova Scribes. It's nice to have you. Tonight, I'm really excited to introduce Sarah Spencer. Sarah has been a friend and a colleague of mine for a long time. She's also a Nova Scribes organizer. Not only that, she happens to be the president of the International Forum of Visual Practitioners. What does that mean? So she is a graphic recorder. She transforms complex conversations into powerful real-time visuals. She sparks clarity, collaboration, and shared understanding. In addition to that, she's also a product designer for facilitators. She creates custom tools. She's done card decks, books, visual models, all of the purpose for deepening engagement and extending learning well beyond the event. She works with leading organizations across sectors, Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, large nonprofits, and international conferences. She works out of you might see it, her restored 1963 Airstream trailer, which is a creative space that she uses for her ideas to take shape and have imaginations run wild. So, Sarah, welcome to Nova Scribes. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate
All
you
right.
opening this up.
This is, as you know, this is our series of process talks where we invite an accomplished graphic facilitator or graphic recorder to come in and talk about what they do from soup to nuts. So, Sarah, we can do this in any order. I can throw some of the examples that you shared with me up, or you can kind of just introduce yourself and what you're all about. How do you want to do this?
Yes, well, let's just popcorn around. So I'll introduce myself. Like Brian said, I'm Sarah Spencer. I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been the president of IFVP for just over a year now. And if you are not familiar with that, Brian will drop us the website and some information about the IFVP into the chat. We
Absolutely.
are an amazing group of generous people all doing good work in the world. So if you join the IFEP, you will find lots of resources and people to help you on your way. And Bo, I'm thinking of you specifically because there's a lot of resources for you there. I've been a graphic recorder and facilitator, well, graphic recorder for about 10 years and then a facilitator for about 3 or 4. And my which I think my first love is graphic facilitation or graphic recording because I really just love to listen. I love to listen to what people are saying and then capture their ideas and put them down on paper for everyone to see and to help folks understand what they have heard and what they have shared, how that connects with everything that everyone else has said. So I have chosen a number of images of graphic recordings, and they are all have like a specific reason. So the first thing I'll show, or Brian's going to show, is this graphic recording for Goodwill. And this is for their leadership retreat of 2022. And where we kind of start as graphic recorders is like using the tools. And so we have these tools, these markers called Neuland markers. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Neuland markers, but they are the industry standard for graphic recording. And the advantage of these is that they are water-based, so they don't smell bad and they don't leak through the paper and they're very juicy. And the other thing is that they are refillable. So they are really great to use all day long because if you start to run out, you just refill them on the fly. And what I'd like to have you look at in this graphic recording is how I've used the lines of the marker to indicate shape. So you'll see like Spider-Man has action. If you can you zoom in on part of this, Brian, like over on the lower left?
Yeah, it'll take me a second, but I can get there.
Yeah,
And
that's fine.
Sarah, you might want to just because we've got some new folks. What is graphic recording? What is graphic facilitation?
Oh, yes. Okay. So graphic recording is the act of listening to what's being said in a group setting, in a shared group setting, and writing and drawing and writing what is captured in both literally like quotes or synthesizing by that is by taking a group of concepts and putting them together into a one idea that people can reflect on. Um, graphic facilitation is when the graphic recorder is actually part of the facilitation team. So that means that as a graphic facilitator, I am running a workshop or facilitating a team and taking their images and putting them down. Now, visually, you can really tell the difference between graphic facilitation and graphic recording because the graphic facilitation is less uh there I am. And actually, in fact, I'm graphic recording for Brian right here.
Okay.
Uh,
And so that would be, what would you call this one? This is graphic recording?
this is a graphic recording because you were
Okay.
facilitating. Yep, you were facilitating and I
Like that.
was drawing. Yep. And so graphic facilitation does not, so I come from an illustration background. So please, if you don't, I hope for you not to feel intimidated by the art that you see here. Of course, I I curated the best ones out of my selection, but I had a lot of time to work on this particular graphic recording that we're zooming in on. So I was able to use that time to work with the markers in such a way that helped to tell the story. So as you see, like Spider-Man has these motion lines behind him. If you Brian will move over to the Wonder Woman. Yeah, you can see how if you zoom in on her body, you can tell how I've used the marker to accentuate her body lines. So you can see it gives her some sense of dimension.
You're
Uh,
talking about kind of like flow here. Let me pick a
yeah,
different color. So
yeah, yeah, the
like the
flow.
this kind of thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, yep. And so that added to the motion that is part of this of character. And then
Nice.
Brian, if you move over to the buildings,
Mhm.
um, so over the buildings in that Superman, yeah, that's you can also tell the Superman. I also use the markers to accentuate his body to give him a more three-dimensional look. And also, I used a light gray to create a shadow line on those buildings.
Cool. So
Um,
Sarah, what was your process for this? Did you kind of like pre-visualize it first and sketch it out? Pencil sketch?
so so the what I how I process something like this is I usually have just an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that I will do a sketch on to kind of chunk things out. And then I will also use a pencil and a straight edge to draw right on the page. So this is a 4 by 8 foot illustration that I did at a conference.
Like that.
Yes, just
Perfect.
like that.
Nice.
Yep.
Thank you.
Back back in the COVID days, I think that's a mask around my arm there. And so the just to say again about these markers, if Brian, if you have not dropped a link
Mhm.
into the
Yeah, I
chat
can.
yet, will you please? And you can take a look at the markers. They're made in Germany, but there is a woman here, in fact, a German woman here in America that imports them. So you can get them delivered from her instead of shipping in from Germany. So I guess before moving on to the next, does anyone have any questions about like marker use and layout and hierarchy? Does
So
anything?
I'm noticing that you use a lot of different lettering styles. So, this one, there's a lettering style here, here, here. Tell me a little bit about how you make the choice to use particular lettering, please.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So in this particular illustration, this graphic recording was recording various breakout sessions. And because all of them were different, I chose different uh, 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 hand lettering styles.
Mhm.
You will see in other graphic recordings that I do where there's like a hierarchy and there's like I have like the same I use the same hand lettering to indicate various hierarchies in the information. This was just me having fun. I think I had like 3 hours to do this while everyone was in their breakout sessions. So I spent a lot of time just having fun drawing the letters and the characters.
Thanks. Amy, what's coming up?
So with the section that's got the multiverse of madness,
Uh-huh.
so those words and volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, complexity, all that, like did you use some pencil lines ahead of time to ensure because like I can see like it going off the rails really quickly for me, but it's because you did it as a you know that it was coming in that it worked out, right? Like so how did you ensure your lettering because it's one thing to me, to like try and have it all the same size, right? But that you had it again, the movement in it by it getting smaller at the end.
Yes. So I use pencil a lot as guides. I have a pencil that in some cases actually I will erase, but sometimes I leave the pencil on there because it kind of helps to it just adds a layer of a complexity and interest to the piece. So for this one, I took a pencil and I just swirled around like this, and then I chose like a little wedge to come around. So I do use pencil, and I will admit my lettering does go off the rails sometimes. For instance, the word entrepreneurship is so long. I never plan enough space for that word. I always end up like sort of jamming it up at the end. So there are times where my lettering does go off the rails, but it's okay. So you just kind of get creative and move in a different direction, or find some purpose for why it might bend in an interesting way. But yes, for this I did use a pencil to guide that lettering.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think that there's really I think there's two different kind. Well, there's lots of different kinds of drawing, but I think they you could put most drawing into two camps. One of them is drawing imaginatively, which is you can picture something in your head and you just put it on paper. And then the other kind is drawing from reference, where you're looking at something. Were you drawing imaginatively or from reference when it came to the three superheroes on here? Did you
Oh,
have a reference?
absolutely reference.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
So how did you find that reference?
Well, the woman, the red and blue characters were actually part of the branding of the event.
Neat.
So
So they handed it to you.
yes, yes. So they that and that those were actually the anchoring pieces of this was were those two, because it was a very well branded event, and I thought it would be nice to have that branding come over into the graphic recording. And then, Spider-Man, of course, I had to look him up.
Yeah, that's a great looking Spider-Man, by the way.
Thanks.
So if I may, what I really, really like about this one is that you've got two really strong anchor images that
Mhm.
balance the piece, so it's like it's not too heavy on one side or the other. And then there's really good readability for this. Like I start in the upper left-hand corner and then I work left to right and then top to bottom. Like it's very easy to navigate this chart. Sometimes you see a lot of charts that can be a little bit tough, to find your way through. Let me not delete your picture. There we go. You got a question from Sherry in chat. How did you build the layout? Is that straight edge, or how did you come up with that?
Yes, so I am very self-conscious about not being able to draw a line that is level. I'm always kind of like going up or down or whatever. So I use a level a lot to create boxes and like lines for me to draw in. So I guess it could be a crutch. I think I might be getting better. I don't use it as much as I used to, I will say. So using tools like that when you're drawing is completely like is actually a really great thing to do, because the more you use it, the less you will rely on it. And again, for this one, I knew that there was like this number of breakout sessions happening. And so I did a quick sketch and kind of blocked it out for myself before I came in and drew it. And then I also know that this is a 4 by 8. So it's real easy for me to go, okay, so 4 feet over is the middle, and then I can kind of like start to like box it out. I don't know if you've ever, um, yes, exactly. Like, so if I have an 8.5 by 11 paper, I'll kind of approximate 4 by 8, and then I will draw lines over that to say like, okay, in this half, this is where, like the power of candor was meant to be right in the middle. So that's where I started. And then I just started building out from there.
Nice. Sherry, did you want to add to that? I saw you went off mute earlier.
Yeah, you came around to the origin of my question. I was asking, more like how did you plot it? If the two people were kind of the anchors at the beginning, what pieces added did you add on next, and how did you strategize it? So you kind of answered that with the blocking out and how many breakouts. Is there anything more that you wanted to add about your pre-thinking before it appeared?
Uh, um, well, so just, their hierarchy is always a thing. So the Leadership Learning 2022 was, the title. So I wanted that to be really big. The power of candor happened to be one of the main points of the year. So there's a book that the leadership team was reading, and so like the power of candor was like a really big point that year. And then the one retreat is the name of the retreat. So I really had the hierarchy be to follow what the organization had led with this year
Thanks.
in this year.
Thank
All
you.
right. Should we do another one?
Sure.
All right, cool. So changing futures. Tell me about this one.
So this was for ASU just recently, the Folk Fest 2026, and that's means Future of Learning Community. And this was a two panels that I drew, like one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And there's always it seems to be always a question about how do you graphic record a panel. And
Mhm.
so I thought it would be nice to bring that into this conversation. So the this is where the type or the sorry the hand lettering is hierarchical. So the uh, arcs with the words in capital letters, thank you, are the subjects that were based off or that came out of the questions that the students in this particular case that the students asked. In addition to that, I wanted to also add a little bit of graphic communication about what that was. So like the tension line is like scratchy, and the future is now has the two arrows coming to the center. And the assumptions is like the dots sort of connecting. And navigating the future is around the uh
Compass.
compass. Thank you. I was like, what's that thing? So then once I know what the question is about that is asked to the panel, then I begin to pull out the essence of the answers of the panelists.
Mhm.
And then you can see the same thing happens over on the right side, where I continued that headline of what the choice of or what the questions were, and then this ended up being the morning and the afternoon panel on one page.
Nice.
So there were other things in between there, but I thought that it would be really interesting to have the panels together in order for you to see if there were any connections or threads throughout.
Yeah, I want to highlight that because that's a very, very masterful move. Because sometimes we get into a mindset where we're doing the visual note-taking thing, and it's like, okay, well, this section is done. I have to leave that chart and then move on to the next one and not revisit it. And and sometimes you run into this space where, especially following an activity, a presentation, a panel discussion, there'll be some reflections that happens. And I kind of like to put all those reflections on one chart. So Sarah, I hear you doing kind of the same thing here. Karen, I noticed you got your hand up. What's up? And if you're speaking right now, I can't hear you.
So I'm trying to get an understanding of how and when you laid all of this out.
Mm.
I've seen graphic facilitators and the sessions in progress, and they're drawing, and these seem so well thought out. When did you actually create this? I mean, I couldn't imagine being able to lay all this out while a session is in progress because you don't know what's going to happen.
Can I guess at this one, Sarah? Or do you want
Sure.
all
No,
right, so
no, take it.
here's what I'm guessing she did. You tell me if I'm wrong, okay? What I think she did in advance is that first she did the title, right? Laying that out. And that was probably done in advance of the discussion. And most likely this to indicate the student panel, and then this one to indicate the one following. And then just as the conversation unfolded, you captured kind of the key theme and then a couple of ideas underneath it, another key theme, a couple of ideas underneath it, a key theme, a few ideas underneath it. My sense is that you worked, once you had like the upward and lower limits, you pretty much worked from left to right. Is that how close did I get?
Oh, pretty close, except I didn't draw the student panel or the lunch and learn panel words until the end.
Ah, cool. All right.
Yes, so, because I wasn't really sure. So changing futures, I wrote first, and of course I wanted, and it was a really big room, so I wanted people to be able to see that from across the room. And you are right, I worked from left to right, and the student panel was in the morning, and the lunch and learn panel was in the afternoon. So really, what this is an indication of timing.
Hmm.
So and in fact actually I wasn't even sure if I thought I was even wondering if the entire 4 by or actually this is 40 by 8, 40 inches by 96 inches. I wasn't even sure that the student panel wouldn't take up the entire page. So what I did was I just started, and so it's a timing thing. So like the panel was an hour, and then I
Hmm.
kind of like figured out like where, because they had like the introductions and they did a lot of talking, that really wasn't anything for me to capture. And then when they started in the questions and answers, I began to, yes. Yeah. So that's
Kind of
30
like
minutes
this.
of that. Yep.
So you sort of spaced it out, I should probably do beyond that, but this would be probably like 90 minutes, you want to be here, and then 2 hours you're here. Something like
Yep.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I had it been a much more robust conversation, that very well could have filled up the whole thing. But as it was, there was a lot like a number of the students sort of repeated themselves, not in a bad way, just was like sort of underscoring their points. And I there's a cadence then, so it's like I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be I determined about 30 minutes in that this was going to be about a half of the page, and I knew that the lunch and learning panel was coming up, so I made a decision that I would reserve the other half of the page for the lunch and learn. So then I knew in the lunch and learn that I had to be really tight with what I captured, because I only did have a half a page. And as it turned out, the lunch and learn also was not a super robust panel either. So it ended up
Mhm.
actually being working out really well.
Nice. All right, I have kind of a nerdy question for you.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you're ready for it. This is going to be easy for you. So, this blue that I'm looking at here, is that the Neuland 303 ink,
It
or is
is.
that pastel? Okay, all right. So here's my follow-up question to that. I noticed that there's a little bit of like what you might call fall off or burn on your chart. So when you did the cleanup, it looks like you pushed the white about as far as you could. If you'd pushed it any further, you would have lost the 303, right?
Yes.
So how do you clean up your charts and maintain the three, like the very lighter colors, like the 303 or some of the lighter ones, without having, this kind of fall off show up on your charts?
What's fall
Well,
Ha-
off?
Well, all right, take a look at the difference here between the edge of the chart and pure white. So if you go back and take a look at this one, there's no difference between the edge of the chart and like pure white. This one, you can see where the edge is. Okay. You can really see it over here. See how it's darker on this side?
Mhm.
And in general, it can be really, really hard to get the background of the chart to go pure white without losing these very subtle colors, right? So I'm
Yes.
trying to figure out how Sarah does that.
Yeah. I send it out for professional
Okay,
scanning.
that'll do that. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So in fact, actually, this one is on its way to be scanned right now. So, because these are so large, I mean, this particular one is 8 feet long and 40 inches high. Because they're so
Hmm.
long, the lighting is virtually impossible. Like to be able, and that's why it's like blue on one side, on the lower left, and then kind of gray on the lower right is because I've got light bouncing in from all over the place. I even have my own lights that I try to like hit those corners, and and it's really difficult. There are people who will take like photographs, like iPhone photographs of the charts, and then they will clean them up, but I do not. Yeah, I do not. Yes, exactly. And then there's color bouncing off the floor, like the walls, or yeah, there's just color bouncing all over the place. So I always draw on paper, and I always offer scanning services to my clients. That is archive quality. I don't guarantee that these, yeah, so and Brian does these services, by the way, if you want anything scanned. So I don't guarantee that it is going to be perfectly white and with the colors and everything, just because of these limitations of the environment. And no client has ever really, most everybody pays for, virtually everybody pays for the archive scanning, because it
Mhm.
literally, you could print it full size on a piece of vinyl and stick it on a wall, or there's and it gets every single detail. Like you just these like I said, these scans are so big that a just an iPhone or an iPad, which is typically what we use, is, yeah, there you go. Yeah, you can reproduce it on foam core. And also it's a an archive. So I always suggest to my clients they don't need to do it, but there are a lot of good reasons for doing it. And one of them is to eliminate all of this stray light, that stray shadows that happen.
Just because she's on the call, Sherry Kennedy, how do you use Photoshop to clean up the edges?
I first off, I will say, anytime I can encourage a client to go for the full-on scan, I do. That is a number one best possible outcome. I've been doing a lot of work with nonprofits and groups that have no budget. And I tend to work a little bit smaller than that for those types of events. So typically I will do the best I can with the lighting I have, and then I use some Photoshop magic, which I happen to be lucky to have taken some classes in the past, paid by past employers. So so my tip with that is, there's a without going too into too much depth, there is a little eyedropper button that you can say, take this area right here and call this white, and boom, it creates mostly a white background. However, if you have, like most conference rooms, you'll have a gradation from light to dark across the whole page. Then what I will do is take sections, yes, like that. I will take sections of it. Usually it works to kind of go with like horizontal bands from top to bottom. And I'll take, like, a quarter of it um, at a time. Those would be left to right. I think I'm thinking top to bottom. But
Okay.
uh, so if it's whatever sort of similar in color, I'll select a stretch of that, and then I'll what's called feather that selection by like 100 pixels or something really wide. So it makes a selection, and then it selects some of the pixels as a really loose, not a sharp line, but like a loose feathery line. And then I'll do that same process and select somewhere in here, the white area is this. And hopefully, and then I'll keep an eye to those light colors and make sure they're not disappearing and kind of do the best I can. And then I'll take my selection and move it down a little bit and overlap between the two. So I'll just do a little bit at a time and it sort of averages. So that's one way of doing it. If it's just along the bottom, then I'll do a selection that does not include any of those light colors, that just has the really sharp, dark, high contrast plus the muddiness at the bottom, and then I'll play with either the eyedropper or some of the other tools in Photoshop and make it high contrast, whatever it is I need to do to make the lightest disappear. There's something called curves that you can say all the light
Mhm.
areas get a little bit whiter or something like that.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yes.
There's Sherry Kennedy, everybody, being a Photoshop ninja. Yep.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All right,
We'll
Sarah,
put
let's see
that.
if we can get another one in here. How about tell me about this one, Living Man. The title just blows me away on this one. This is amazing. Tell me about this one.
So the client had a themed event like the other one with the superheroes, but this one was the title of the event was called Sea Change, and so the idea of like there's a sea change in at ASU, and so we came to this idea. So she had like shells on the table, and like she really had the whole room decked out and sort of being like underwater. And so I made a choice to create this reef, this coral reef as a center idea. And then, so I drew the reef first and then waited for the content to come in. So the big chunky areas of the meeting were the support, inclusive spaces, and resources. So what happened is the group of people came together and determined through sticky notes and voting that the three areas that they needed in this sea change was support, inclusive spaces, and resources. And then I gathered, what those three things were under the various areas. And then the kind of ocean of environment that these had to live in was in the areas of space, advanced technology, national security, health, and sustainability. So this is an example of using a metaphor, or event branding to support the thoughts that the content that came out of the conversation.
Lovely.
And then just a note on the lettering. So how I did that living map is I drew that with pencil, like the L, the words living map. And then I took that same 303. I'm a big fan of that 303. And I just kind of marked around the pencil to create that kind of watery look.
It's a great color when it behaves itself, and that's sometimes
Yeah.
it doesn't always behave.
Yes,
Cool.
that is
And
true.
then and what I mean by that is sometimes you can get one 303 marker and then another 303 marker, and they'll be like two totally different colors. I don't know if you've had
Yeah.
that experience. I seem to have, I don't know. It happens about half the time with me. Um, so just going back to the idea of drawing imaginatively versus from reference. So I'm assuming the coral reef is from a reference, like you had something that you were looking at or referencing to get there.
Yes.
Okay. And then like the rest of your icons, how did you do those? I love your people, by the way. How did you do your icons though?
Um, well, those are all out of my mind.
Out of your mind. You're out
Yeah,
of your mind. Okay.
they're out of my
Okay.
mind. So, the handshake, so the handshake I was actually like playing with. It's not like super perfect, but the handshake there on the left, I
Tough.
uh will pencil that because the handshakes are so weird. They're like very hard to
Yes.
like draw just randomly. So I will oftentimes with a handshake just do a couple, pencil lines to kind of get the whole hand thing figured out. And then I'll
Mhm.
go back in with marker. But everything else was just done out of my mind. The Pals for Grad Students is a new character I'm playing with. Um,
Yeah.
I have another, and you might see it in some of these other graphic recordings of mine, but this little kind of mid-size human, I wanted to explore a new look. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of leveling up or refining some of my work, and so I do that in the work.
It's cute. I like the nose. That's a good move. I haven't seen that nose before.
Oh, thanks.
Uh, anytime you see that kind of like, big scalp to, nostrils nose, that's going to be a Sarah Spencer signature.
Thanks.
Lovely. Now, did you do the core, except I'm guessing, I'm not sure about this. Um, this stuff, was that pre-drawn before the meeting?
Yeah. Well, no, well, the center part, not the space,
Center
advanced
was.
technology, national security. We weren't quite sure what that quote unquote environment was yet because it still
Yep.
needed to be. But I knew that there was the like the ocean. So this is
Right.
where this is the environment that we're in, and then these three chunky areas was really what we were going for. Like, what did this room think was really
Hmm.
needed for this work to get done. So I knew I wanted the coral, and it actually really worked. This is one of the reasons that I love graphic recording is because these magical things will come out of it. So if you notice, there's four words in just above the word sea change there: community, collaboration, connectedness, and communication. I
Here.
I love
Mhm.
alliteration, yes. I was like honestly kind of running out of ink. Like that's a lot of that's a lot of ink for a graphic recording. And so I left that white thing area there because I was like, oh, and I was kind of running out of time too, because people were starting to like really, the conversation was getting juicy, so I needed to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
So I left that part open with the intention of going back and like coloring it in. And one of the things that came out of it was this idea of like in order for the coral reef to grow, like, using the metaphor coral reef of these people working together, they needed these four things. And so these four things surfaced out of the work that they were doing. And I thought, well, that's a perfect place to put it is inside the coral reef because that is what helps it grow. And then the same thing happened at the top. Like I was sort of like drawing the top part of the coral reef, and it's like,
Yep.
I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. So I left it blank. And what ended up coming out of this whole thing was like, okay, the goal is to support the STEM community at all levels. So that really was kind of like a magical thing that happened just out of just kind of happened because I like ran out of time and ink. And so it really ended up being so I that's one of the things that I love about graphic recording is that there's these magical opportunities that happen, and it's really fun when it all kind of fits together.
Yeah, I love this chart. I think you've got a really, really strong title here. You've got a really strong anchor image. You're pulling in the logos here. And then, I love the ribbons as a kind of as a mechanic to bring things in. And then, just very, very clear structure on this one. Again, this has just got really, really good layout and flow. This is, yeah, I love this one. This one's great.
Thank you.
Um, Karen, I notice you're off mute. I'm not sure if it's a dangling unmute or you wanted to weigh in on something while you're
So,
thinking about it. Oh, you do. Go for it.
yeah, so this gives real clarity, what they want to do. What is the handoff to, the groups and teams that are going to execute this?
Um, so if I understand your question, you're asking how are they going to take this information and actually execute on it?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay. So there were other note takers in the room, and they were taking really robust notes. And so the notes that and also I worked with my client during this because the support inclusive spaces and resources that was all post-it notes. And so with her, like while she was doing something, I was synthesizing them and putting them in like and grouping them. And then I had her come over and I'm like, okay, so this is what I saw. And she's like, yes, that's great. Now transfer that onto the board, which I did. And then so I synthesized the notes for her, but then she also had these robust note takers that were also taking these notes. So she's taking this graphic recording as a quick visual guide to um, orient herself to the greater amount of content. So, like for instance, if they're talking about uh, I can barely read that. I forgot. So like health initiatives. So like if she can look at this and say like, okay, awareness building and support around health initiatives. So now she knows where to go in this giant stack of content to find the details around what everybody was talking about around health initiatives.
Okay. And then do you structure that, there are going to be all these note takers, and then this is the, kind of North Star, and then we have to fill out the sky by action. And uh, I was in a session today, and it was what struck me is that you can take different people's expertise and put them together. So I do organizational change management. So I'm thinking, oh, uh, what's next? You know. So so is that something then that you structure with the client, or to make sure they have execution in mind?
Well, I have done that before, but I was not involved with this client past this graphic recording.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
So what this did was it gave, like you said, it gives a North Star about what the group was thinking and basically gave accountability to the team to make sure that they followed up. Like for instance, like there was a lot of talk, inclusive spaces. There was actually a good amount of talk about access to buildings. So what that does is that helps them remember that like, hey, this conversation about access to buildings was a pretty robust conversation. We're going to go over here and read the details about that and then create action plans around it.
Okay. I see like a structure for you is like, okay, let's do a 6 months in the future, right, to capture what the team, the group did.
Yes.
Then you
Yeah.
have the continuum of
Yes. And
ideas
that,
to execution and
yeah.
results.
Yes, yes, that does happen.
Wonderful.
Let's do another one, shall we?
Okay.
Practice principled innovation. Tell me about this one.
So this is a program that ASU has, and it's a way to innovate with character. And so this is a one page, like 4x8 graphic recording. There is a lot of content on here. Seeing it so small might feel a kind of busy. But what I wanted to kind of point out was kind of like design choices within it. So this might be like, so if like, for instance, you were to zoom in on the fireside chat area.
Where is that?
Oh,
Oh,
it's
I got it.
right there. Yeah, right there. So this is kind of it's like using color and shape um to express feeling and thoughts. So of course the fireside chat, everything's on fire. Um, and if you move down a little bit, yeah. So this is also an example of like, okay, I kind of ran out of room. So it kind of
Mhm.
went, so the how do we do, wait, zoom out a little bit, Brian. I'm getting my
Okay.
sentence screwed up here a little bit. What do we do to be principled? So that was a really important line. And then I went into the fireside chat, and this just kind of shows like, okay, I ran out of room, and I started to draw around it, but this is how I was able to connect it so you know that that whole section is together. This was a very much more robust day than I expected, actually. And so there is more on this page than I would probably have done normally. But just the way it was set up and what we had planned for, I really needed to capture a lot in kind of a small area. Um, and then there's some branding stuff in here, and but I don't know, there's not a whole lot to talk about this one. I think this was just an example for me to show you of like how I working in an environment of like I'm not really sure what's coming, that
Yeah.
like how I adapt to the growing nature of the content.
Sarah, I think this is a really, really good one. I think if I can kind of put my critic hat on just for a second.
Of course.
You've got again, you've got a really strong title that you start with. It's very navigable.
Yes.
And then you've got some, again, really, really clear layout. If I was gonna kind of draw the lines between this, it looks like it's kind of in these four big areas. And then within that, I gotta say, I like the denser charts. I like the ones that have got a little bit more content. I feel like I would want to sit down with this with a cup of tea and just like go through it and like really, read through it. I think that there's a lot of stuff in here. Especially, I love that you did this grid to capture all of these different tools. It looks like there was maybe some game playing that was happening, but some real,
Yes.
tools and resources that were shared with this group. And this being a quick reference for each one of those things. Like I'd be curious about what was the dice game and the PI card decks. And I think what your chart does is that it invites people, to learn more about this. So I think that this is really effective, not only as a record of what happened, but also as a memory guide, because it looks like there was a lot of stuff that was shared. So you could share this with anybody who was there, and they would go right back into that conversation. So as
Yes.
a mnemonic, I think that this works really well.
Thank you. Yeah, I think if I were to do this, like if I were to do it all over again, I would actually break this up into 4 or 5 different smaller graphic recordings. So in cases like this, I will pull so this is where I get this scanned and then I pull it out. So I
Hmm.
will literally in Photoshop cut a piece out and then put it on its own page. So I've done books, and in fact, we've got 7 minutes, right?
I mean, technically,
I mean,
yeah.
technically, okay. So I want to make sure to get to the products thing, because I think that that's a really important thing to talk about
You
because
want
that's
to jump to
all
that now?
upselling.
We can do that.
Well, so
All right.
just go to the next graphic recording and
Yeah.
I'll just speak a minute like a second about it. So this is another example of hierarchy in color and lettering. So you
Hmm.
notice like it's mental toughness, growth, business, taking smart risk and strategy are the top ones. Values is treated differently because it's kind of its own thing. And then under that, the yellow parts are what falls below each of those areas. And then it just continues to get more and more refined. Um,
Yeah.
so just that. And then and I don't know, let's see. We can just quickly go to the next one. I don't know what I need to
Yeah.
say about that one.
We're good on time. Relax. This is it's a
Okay.
YouTube video. We're not going to get
Okay.
cut off.
Okay. So then and maybe what I'll only say about this is like creative ways to chunk out sections. So this ball that sort of bounces in through the visual
Thing right here.
here. Yeah, the visual there. Um, is related to the storytelling. They were talking about like fluid learning and bouncing back and this sort of thing. So this is just a way to one way to express like an idea or thought during the meeting and add some playfulness to it in the graphic recording. And then the final one is also the next one, Brian, is also a way I've like kind of chunk out ideas.
Nice.
So this one was Open Citizen, and they had 5 areas that they were covering. And so it was like, so you have the title, like problem, like, research, project planning, project operations, learning and reflection. So this like process. And then the
Mhm.
background are these circles with these big icons in them that support the idea. And then the connectors is that check-in. So like you're supposed to, so this is a process. So like you set your goal question, and that's the problem section, ownership, and then you check in, and then you do research, and then you check in, and then you do project planning, and then you check in. So it's this process that goes all the way across. Um,
There's like the this stuff right in here, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of so this is a graphic recording of a process that was
Mhm.
being shared in this group.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yes.
Uh,
Does anyone have any?
Products.
Yeah, well, but real quick, does anyone have any questions about any of the ones we just quickly went through?
Oh, all right.
All right.
Now you want to do your products thing?
Yes,
I'll show
let's
you.
do it. Let's do
Okay,
it.
here we go.
Okay, so I am very good at the upsell. So I don't know how relevant this will be for you, but I thought it would be interesting to show you the various things that I do with graphic recordings when I am in the sales. Oh, there we go. There's a product. Nice mug there, Brian. Thank you.
Renata did that. Yeah.
Oh, Renata did. Oh, wonderful. So, this is a document that I put together, and I send this out to clients as to give them an example of what I can do, but this is not exhaustive. So, Brian, yeah, you can just so I draw the graphic recording, and then these are the various things that I have done with the products that or with the graphic recordings that I've done. So, if you go to the next slide. So, principled innovation, that sounds familiar, right? I have been working with ASU and principled innovation since 2018. And throughout that time, I have created notebooks, meeting templates, workshop cards, icons. I've done videos, I've done all kinds of stuff with them. And I'm always talking to them about how we might be able to take the conversations that I've captured and put them into something that has lasting power. There was one time when I went to, in fact, actually, I might not even be in here. I went to and did this graphic recording for this software company. And oh gosh, I had like 4 or 5 graphic recordings around the room at the end of the day. And I walked around with the leadership and I said, hey, these are the things that you can do with this. There was a workshop, there was marketing, market stuff that they could use for their marketing. There were gifts for their participants. There were gifts for their employees. I mean, and out all over the place. They had really, really great, rich content. So if you can talk about it as you're doing the contract, as you're like coming into the project, but then also come back at the end and reiterate the various things that you see that might be valuable to them. So the next one is probably the one that I saw the most. These are books, artifact books.
Mhm.
So it's everything from a weekend, like this one, this Harry Crown Fellowship program was a strategy weekend. The Hal's story was a user experience story of a process that a legal company had, and then you see GCNA Culture Book. That is an entire year of doing graphic recordings and working with the team. So it can be like I said, anything. It could be from a day if you have enough content, all the way to a year. The next one I had a lot of fun doing. This was a desk calendar for an ASU affiliate called Work Plus Collective, and they had a collective of leaders from universities all over the country come together, and they talked about stuff and they had ideas, and I got it down on paper and took those ideas and put it onto a desk calendar with stickers, and they sent these out as a thank you to the individuals that were at the meeting. And every single month has some sort of prompt for them to stay connected. That one was super fun. And then I think, what are these next one? And then
Oh, nice.
and then this is like, ideas about what the participants want. So sometimes what comes out of a graphic recording is a big question that could use a workshop of its own. And then that might be it. I think so.
Lovely.
Yeah, maybe
Great.
there's the last one. So yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
I know that picture. That's a good one right there. All right. So, Sarah, thank you so much for this.
yes.
Before we turn off the recording, yeah, so Karen, colander prompt with coffee mugs. That's a great idea. So coffee mugs are great. Let me just add on to that. Something that I just like do this now, whether my clients ask for it or not. I love these things, right? And sometimes I'll just, you just take them to FedEx and you print them up and they can ship them right there if you don't have somebody that's local. But, to take a whole chart and to put it on something small, because otherwise you give them the chart and typically it winds up rolled up somewhere and people don't see it anymore. Just make sure your name's on it. Sometimes I'll send them one of these. They're like, hey, that was great. Can we have 20 more? I'm like, absolutely. You can have 20 more, right? And then we talk about that. So, I would just add a little bit to that. But Sarah, thank you so much for that. Before we hit close on the recording, thank you so much. Other questions, queries, posers, ideas, insights for Sarah before I turn off the recording? All right. In that case, let's give Sarah a big Nova Scribes. Thank you. So
Thank
thank you very much, Sarah. Yay. Great to have you.
This was great.
I hope it was helpful.